What is up, guys? It is Quinn here, and in this video I'm going to be going through some of my top buy low players heading into week 11 of the NFL season. So these are guys that I want to go out. I'm targeting these players to try to get them onto my roster. If you guys have any fantasy questions, as always, you can drop them down below. It could be start sit, trade advice, waiver wire. I will be responding to every single person. And then actually also, if you guys just want to drop down when your trade deadlines are, that would help me out a lot because I kind of want to figure out how many more weeks I'll be doing these videos. I think I'll definitely have at least one more week, maybe two, but I think it would be cool to just kind of, see where all the trade deadlines are at in all the different leagues. And then if you guys do enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. And then I do just want to talk about Underdog Fantasy Football, where if you guys use code Quinn or the link in the description, they will double your first deposit up to $100. You guys can hop into some fun pick'em games. That's what I like to do, for a lot of these primetime games. I feel like it gives you something to cheer for, even if you're not, rooting for one team super heavily. So one of the props that I like for that Monday night game is Terry McLaurin over 54.5 receiving yards. To me, this number seems really low. In 3 games that Terry McLaurin has played with Taylor Heineke, he has gone for 73, 113, and 56 receiving yards. So he's gone over that number in 3 games. His targets have been very, very consistent, 8, 8, and 9. Now, I do understand the Eagles have a very tough defense, but the Eagles are probably likely going to be ahead pretty early on. I'm guessing this is going to be a decently heavy game script in terms of, passing for the Commanders. So I like that number for McLaurin. If you guys do want to jump into some of those pick'ems, link in the description or code Quinn at Underdog Fantasy. But let's jump into the first buy low player I have, and it is going to be Mike Evans. So he is coming off back-to-back down games. He had 5 receptions for 40 yards 2 weeks ago, and then this past week, only 5 for 54. And then he's also heading into a bye week. So basically, it's going to be 3 straight weeks of very limited production for Mike Evans. However, I do think there are a lot of positives moving forward for this Bucs offense. They had been trending down for a long, long time. This had looked like a pretty miserable unit, going from like the Steelers game, the Panthers game, Ravens, Rams. Like, even though they won that Rams game, it was not a good look. This offense had looked very rough. And I know it was against the Seahawks, but the Bucs offense looked pretty competent yesterday. It was still very run heavy. I still do not trust Byron Leftwich moving forward. But for me here, going after Mike Evans, this is me making a bet that they are going to improve after the bye. Maybe they do some self-scouting. It helps out this offense. I want to bet on the offense with Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. We know who Mike Evans is, and so far this season, his volume has actually been pretty solid. He's just been missing out on the touchdown upside. Evans has always been someone where you can just kind of bank in for double-digit touchdowns. So far this season, in 9 games, he only has 3 touchdowns, and that's not necessarily due to Mike Evans, not being great in the red zone or not producing. It's just the fact that there haven't been a ton of passing touchdowns for these Buccaneers wide receivers. So it's not like Evans is underperforming. It's just that the touchdowns aren't even up for grabs. So I think the bye week is going to help these guys. I still view Mike Evans in that wide receiver 11 to wide receiver 13 range. I still think he's totally in play to be a top 12 wide receiver rest of season. And like I said, I'm just going to be making a bet that this offense does get better and just making a bet on a very talented wide receiver. Evans is someone who has the, reputation of being very boom or bust. A lot of people don't like that. So, this is the time to capitalize if you are trying to get Mike Evans on your roster. Now, sticking at the wide receiver position, we have Chris Olave. As you guys know, I've been a big Chris Olave guy in redraft this year. Honestly, in Dynasty, the draft process, I wasn't overly high on him. I think I was, pretty in line with consensus. But so far this season, he has been incredibly impressive. But over the last 3 weeks, he has been pretty underwhelming. 10.2, 13.1, and then 7 PPR points. He also hasn't gotten into the end zone over that stretch, which is going to, affect those overall point numbers. I could see the Saints going back to Jameis Winston. They started off with Jameis. They go to Dalton. He's really struggled over the past few weeks. I feel like they definitely could go back to Winston, moving forward. I think Winston is going to give Chris Olave a higher ceiling if they do make that move. But even if Dalton stays, Chris Olave is still commanding a lot of targets. He's still clearly this team's wide receiver 1. I just have to buy into the talent here. And, over the course of a season, you're going to have a few down games in a row. We just saw with Amon-Ra, right? He had like the 2 injured games, and then he had 2 just, nothing crazy games where he's not tanking in your lineup, but he's giving you decent production, like 13, 10 points. Then he goes out, has a huge boom week. People wanted to give up on him. So I do like Chris Olave. I view him as a mid to high end wide receiver 2 rest of season, and you may be able to get him more as a back end wide receiver 2. If you can get him for that price, I would definitely be going after Chris Olave. Now shifting over to the running back position, we have Cordarrelle Patterson, and I think Patterson is a really solid buy low because he really went out and just burned a lot of people on Thursday Night Football. Not only did he just tank in the production department, 5 carries, 1 reception, 3 PPR points, but I feel like it always stings more, when you're on prime time. If this Falcons-Panthers game took place on, 1 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, like it hurts, but I feel like people don't care. When people are actually sitting down watching that Thursday Night Football game, watching Patterson just do absolutely nothing, watching the Falcons run out like 4 different running backs in just a really, really gross box score, I just feel like it, hurts a little more in that situation. I think Patterson is still likely not 100%. Right, the first game back, he had a big day, but it was due to touchdowns. He scored twice. It wasn't due to, a ton of volume. Him and Algier were still splitting touches, so it wasn't like he had come back into his massive workload. So with that Thursday night game, he's going to have a week and a half to get ready for the Week 11 game on Sunday. And in the 3 healthy games that we have seen from Cordarrelle Patterson, the first 3 games of the season, he averaged 16.3 carries per game and 2.3 targets per game. I think we're a week or 2 away from getting that healthy, close to 100% Cordarrelle Patterson back. And with that workload, we know the Falcons are going to be very run heavy. That's their identity. Arthur Smith will, go down with the ship on that. I think with that workload and being healthy, he's going to be a mid to high end running back 2. Maybe if he gets lucky with touchdowns, he could be even higher than that. But right now, I feel like he's probably looked at outside the top 20 running backs due to really just one bad game. Whereas if you ask people before that Thursday night game, they'd probably think he's a high-end running back too. So I do like Patterson. And then the final buy low of the week is going to be Michael Pittman. And his value has just absolutely tanked over the past few weeks. Early on in the season, people were viewing Michael Pittman as, a borderline top 12 wide receiver. Some people probably even had him, in the top 12, maybe even in the top 10. The last 4 weeks, the production just hasn't been there. 9.8, 12.3, 5.2, and 12.3 PPR points. That's over the last 4 weeks. I think at this point in time, he's likely viewed as a mid-tier wide receiver 3 or even worse. Like some of the questions I was seeing about like start sits, it was like Michael Pittman or just this like random wide receiver you'd find on waivers in most leagues. Like people are very, very anti-Michael Pittman at this point. And I understand it based on the production, but I still think Pittman can honestly be a weekly start. The volume has been there even in games where he hasn't produced. He has seen 8 or more targets in 7 of the 9 games. And I think Matt Ryan being named the starter moving forward is going to be huge for Michael Pittman. It just wasn't going to be happening with Sam Ehlinger. With Matt Ryan, like Michael Pittman is probably close to where he was early on in the season. So I definitely think he can be a top 20 guy rest of season. Now, I'm not going to be giving up a top 20 wide receiver for him because I don't think that is how he is valued. But I totally think he could be like that type of guy moving forward. But I think he's definitely a solid buy low here if someone in your league is still panicking about Pittman and want to get him off of their roster. So those are going to be the 4 buy low players: Mike Evans, Chris Olave, Cordarrelle Patterson, and Michael Pittman. Like I said, if you want to run trades by me down below in the comments, I will get back to you. Let you know what I think, if it's good or bad, you're winning or losing. If you want to sign up for Underdog, code Quinn or link in the bio, as always, or the description. As always, thank you guys for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.